Good afternoon. We are Group 1 for BA 115 talking about the case Yalla Momos, Expansion Dilemma of a Small Business. Starting off with the introduction, we'll talk about the key problems and focus of Yalla Momos. Here, we observe three key problems: question of expansion, competition and brand, and Expo 2020. The first, question of expansion, is the main decision Goal has to make for Yalla Momos. It's reliant on its effects with other problems, and it's mainly a question of being able to take advantage of the growing market. Here, we wonder if expanding will increase their sales and if it's going to be worth it given the costs, as well as the ever growing market. For the second, competition and brand, Yalla Momos has a pocket-friendly branding. It's known to be humble and comfortable, giving it a homey atmosphere. As such, it vibes well with families, which is good given it's an increasing trend. On the other hand, competitors are more high-end, sporting higher prices and a more limited and arguably specialized menu. Competitors also have aggressive marketing strategies, while Yalla Momos prefers to have something more passive, with social media outputs and mostly on Zomato and a few posters here and there. As for the last key problem with Expo 2020, this guarantees heavy foot traffic for Yalla Momos because it's a sought after event. As such, people from around the globe, and especially in Dubai, will flock to the area, acting as both an opportunity and a threat. Opportunity because it increases the market and demand for Yalla Momos. However, a threat as well if Yalla Momos will not be able to adapt and take advantage of this opportunity, thus giving their competitors an advantage over them. This exacerbates the rapid and volatile growth of Dubai's markets and is definitely going to be a big factor in deciding whether or not they want to expand for their fourth branch and if they want to affect their advertising. As such, this comes with a thesis statement. Goel should open a fourth branch and increase advertising to take advantage of Expo 2020 and maximize profits while staying competitive in a growing and volatile market. We will also take into account inflation here, as later discussed in the analysis. Now, moving on to part 2, the background.
So, what is Yalla Momos and how did it start? Like, Prashant Goal and his brother started Yalla Momos back in 2012. Not many restaurants were selling momos, which were actually increasing in demand. So, because of low competition, it was the right time to enter the market. Yalla Momos generates revenue through beverage sales and its main dish, momos, which are big dumplings filled with buffalo meat, goat, chicken, or vegetables. This can be eaten in the venue or to go due to its easy to consume nature. Currently, Yellow Momos has three operating branches in very attractive and populous areas. One in a residential district, Al Karama, the second in Dubai International City, and one kiosk in Bor, Dubai, one of the most populated areas in Dubai because of its tourist attractions. Next, onto our SWOT analysis. Yellow Momo's strengths are the following. Firstly, they have a unique selling point of low prices. With this, they are able to capture a large market as those in the lower income bracket or low purchasing power can afford their product. In addition, Yellow Momos has a good brand reputation and can benefit from free advertising due to its favorable reviews on Zomato, a highly influential online platform with a large user base of millions of diners globally. Lastly, Yalla Momos has a high contribution margin ratio, meaning high profitability, currently with a 70% CMR, as opposed to its competitors with a 50 to 60% CMR. Onto its weaknesses, Yalla Momo's CMR is actually expected to decline in the coming years due to its increasing manufacturing costs and constant selling price. In addition, there is no proper way to evaluate the performance of its second or third branches if their sales are actually increasing or decreasing throughout the years, despite it generating less sales than its first branch, because there is a lack of proper evaluation on its financial performance. Onto its opportunities. With an expected 5.5 increase in GDP per capita in Dubai, it is expected that demand and consumption will increase due to higher purchasing power. Moreover, demand for the dining industry is increasing due to the ongoing trend of families in Dubai dining out. Growing demand for yellow momos can also be capitalized by expanding in Al Barsha, a very populous area. notable opportunity is the upcoming Expo 2020. This is an avenue for businesses to showcase their products to a large audience due to the influx of visitors from all over the world, to network, attract potential customers, investments, and most of all, maximize brand exposure. As for its threats, with the upcoming Expo 2020, market competition in the food and beverage industry is tightening with market preparation. With more quick bite outlets opening and the aggressive advertising of its competitors, Yellow Momos may actually lose customers. Furthermore, with inflation, the cost of food sold will increase, lowering the CMR, resulting in a loss in net profit if the selling price is not increased or if cost is not lessened or decreased.
The group has formulated three alternative courses of action. First is to not introduce any changes in the finances and business operations, which means that business will continue as usual. This means that there are no costs for advertising and expansion activities. The pro is that no additional costs are incurred, while the downside is that the sales will not increase since there is no additional exposure done. Furthermore, inflation continues to increase costs while profitability remains the same. The following are the costs to be saved with this option. The second option is to increase advertising activities. The pro is that it increases 2015 sales by 10% and introduces purchases from wholesale markets for cheaper raw materials. The cons include increased advertising expense while running the risk knowing that advertising is historically known to not be effective. There will also be additional expenses to keep raw materials fresh from wholesale markets. The following are the costs to be incurred with this option. The third option is to have both advertising and expansion activities. Pros include an increase of 2015 sales of as much as 144%. The expansion also has a low rent, and there will be no change in fixed expenses since the central kitchen can accommodate the extra load. Cons include additional expenses incurred for advertising and expansion, as well as the risk of having a new branch that may potentially not do well. The following are the costs to be incurred with this option.
So for a quantitative assessment, next slide please. As you can see from 2015 CMR ratio of 70%, the CMR of 2016 will decrease to 69% due to inflation since the cost of food sold will increase by 2.4%. And if the selling price of 20 per meal is maintained, the worst approach according to our analysis is doing nothing. So no advertising nor expansion. This has the greatest disadvantage. On the other hand, the expansion and advertising approach is the best course of action because it has the greatest financial advantage of 66,464 with a 144% increase in net profit from 2015's financials. For the first and second approach, it is at a disadvantage since the increase in contribution margin is not enough to cover the increase in fixed expenses. As for the expansion and advertising approach, although break-even point has increased significantly compared to the other two due to the increase in fixed expenses because a new branch will be opened, contribution margin earned will actually and will still be able to cover the fixed expenses even though CMR has decreased from 70% to 69%. According to Meta and Jam, the price of food and non-alcoholic beverages was expected to rise by 0.05% to 2% in 2016, along with the inflation rate of 2.4%. A crucial step to maximize the advantage of the expansion and advertising approach is to increase the selling price of Yalla Momos by 2%. According to our calculations, it is better to ride with the expected 0.05 to 2% price inflation of these food and beverages because with a 2% increase in selling price, the decrease in CMR can be mitigated to 69.88%. There is a 14,544 financial advantage increase from the approach without the increase in selling price. Break-even point will also decrease with the increase in selling price, and overall net profit is expected to increase. This approach of increasing the selling price is recommended because if the Yalla Momos low selling price is held constant, the contribution margin ratios in the succeeding years will continually decrease with the increasing cost of food sold due to price inflation each year.
As such, we see how Goel expanding Yalla Momos and increasing advertising while taking into account inflation is the best course of action. Next slide, please. As seen in the numbers, there is a net profit increase, and it is only the option that presents a financial advantage. In relation to this, the financial advantage is greater than the break-even points percentage-wise. The CMR is also still greater than the industry average of 50 to 60%. Another pro is that it counters the effects of inflation. Regardless of which option is taken, inflation increases prices of costs and thereby lessens contribution margin. Thus, it is better to invest in expansion and advertising activities to help boost sales and eventually improve net profits despite the increase of prices of goods due to inflation. The expansion also caters to an already existing and constantly growing demand in Al Barsha. It also capitalizes on increasing GDP per capita and food consumption as mentioned in the SWOT analysis earlier. The case study also mentions a KMPG survey that shows market demand continues to increase, which presents a good outlook on the profitability of the expansion. The group also notes the possibility of increasing the selling price by as much as 2% to counter inflation. This increase in selling price can help lower break-even units and sales to maintain the CMR. This minimal increase will not drive away customers since the prices are low to begin with. The higher purchasing power also encourages customers to spend more. As mentioned, it also has the best financial advantage. Cons include the risk, especially if advertising was not effective. Furthermore, food trends and preferences may also change and affect demand for the product.
With this analysis, we now move on to a recommendation, which are the steps for implementation. Now, as has been emphasized by Annie and Carla, we want Yalla Momos to expand and advertise. Analysis shows stark and obvious reasons for wanting to expand and increase advertising with both quantitative and qualitative evidence. So now there are three main steps: expand, advertise, and raise prices. For expand, we want them to set up their fourth branch in Al Bashra, which will increase sales exponentially. The location has been known to have a lot of foot traffic already, and as seen with their calculations, it has a high financial advantage and will net significant net profits without affecting break-even point as much. Aside from this, they should finalize their fixed costs and other needed setup materials. This includes the branch itself, such as materials, possible employees, and of course, the raw materials which they can get through wholesale markets. However, as mentioned earlier, the fixed cost for their kitchen does not need to matter too much and will not be taken into account because it can be accommodated. This cushions a bit of their losses and makes it an even better decision. They should also begin curating more comprehensive financial statements for all branches as it provides needed information for such decisions. If they had more information, we could suggest more recommendations in order what to do, as we would have numbers to back up our qualitative assumptions and analysis. Aside from this, their second step would be to advertise. They could invest into posters, social media presence, and encourage customers to leave online reviews. Even if advertising supposedly does not have the best reach, online reviews and word of mouth is so far the best way to get customers, as according to the KPMG survey. As such, investing in advertisement will definitely increase their sales and perhaps increase it by more than 10%. There will be definitely more people due to Expo 2020, and getting the word around will definitely get these customers to go to Yalla Momos instead of their competitors. They should also capitalize on spreading their pocket home branding, especially with increasing trends of families. Given a lot of people attending the expo would be far away from home, they might want this comfortable atmosphere, and Yalla Momos could provide just that. As such, they would be able to properly take advantage of the expo traffic and increase their sales as so. Lastly, our last step is to raise prices. This is to match the 2% inflation and cover costs while allowing CMR to remain constant. This matching would, as mentioned by Annie earlier, would increase their net profits more, decrease break-even point, and increase financial advantage. This means they have to constantly adapt to match inflation and prevent losses, and given it's a minimal increase in price, their demand won't decrease all too much, as customers will still be willing to pay for their products. We thank you for listening, And if you have any questions, feel free to hit any of us up. If you want to see the Google spreadsheet, we did all of our solutions, and feel free to check the link.